You know when you're like in a field and there's like crickets?
See, I was thinking it's like fucking orchestra. Like tuning your shit.
Tuning your shit.
One of the greatest noises ever.
Butcher Girls is an online butcher shop.
It's a members only, but not like exclusive members meat subscription service. It's a club that takes everybody. You just have to pay to get in. You get some pretty dope bags and really awesome curated meat boxes. Right now, I am just packing up orders for our subscribers. Every Monday, we deliver all across Manhattan. Tuesday is Brooklyn. Wednesday is Westchester, Northern Jersey, and the Hamptons. In the mornings, it's kind of like our version of service. So today's Tuesday, so it's Brooklyn Day. People can get one of 3 different Omakase boxes, which are $100, $175, and $250.
The term omakase basically means, I'll leave it up to you in Japanese. We took that same concept and applied it to a more CSA-driven meat box situation where we take about the 20 years of combined butchery experience that we have and put together a hyper-curated box that is meant just for each individual customer.
I'm just checking the weights because that will determine. Like this gal ordered a small omakase, which is $100, so I don't want to give her like a $90 ribeye and then a pack of ground beef because that seems kind of not nice. But then she like asked for pork to grill, and this is a pork shoulder steak, so it's like a cross-cut pork butt.
We started off with about 65 customers. We like collected them. And we're like, okay, this is enough people to deliver to. And then I think now we are in the like upper 200, so like 275 or so. When you first sign up on the Butcher Girls website, you have to fill out your questionnaire before you get to order the meat.
Even before we start communicating with people, we have a pretty good idea of who they are. But when we were putting the questionnaire together, we wanted to mimic the experience of speaking to someone over the counter, you know, so that was important. So this is my girl Janet, who's been around since the beginning. So I just remember from last time that I gave her a lot of braisey stuff. So this time I'm giving her more like pork chops and a ribeye, stuff where she can kind of like switch it up.
I think the nature of our business is it revolves around hand-holding, AKA education.
And empowerment.
Yes, because the whole point about what we do is to educate people about all the little things on an animal that you might not know about.
There's plenty of butchers in the world. Like a lot of people can take apart an animal, but I think what hopefully sets us apart is that we're there literally to just answer your emails and your texts whenever, all the time, and kind of help empower you in the kitchen. I'm just telling her that that little ball is marrow butter to baste her ribeye. And then Erika's a big Gossip Girl fan for whatever reason. So she always started signing her emails XOXO Butcher Girls. So orders usually go out around now, like 10:30 or 11. So it's kind of time to sort of like pick up the pace a little bit. So it's about 1 o'clock and we're just accepting our weekly pig and lamb delivery.
So at Butcher Girls, we operate on like a 2-week schedule, basically. So week 1, let's say, we'd have all of the meat delivery at once. We get 1 whole steer on Monday. On Tuesday, we get 2 whole pigs, 2 whole lamb. A lot of what we're thinking about at this point is when it comes in, we're scrutinizing the carcasses for quality.
Generally, when the meat comes in, the idea is just to break it down quickly and get it in the fridge, and then we process more later.
I have been butchering for about 12 years.
I've been butchering for almost 9 years.
Really?
Yeah, 2012.
Damn.
Erika was my first butcher instructor. It's gross. We met at work. I think when you work in the food industry, that's the only place you meet someone that you wind up dating.
This is a whole lamb carcass, and I am gonna cut it down into subprimals and then primals, and ready for retail cuts. Butcher Girls came about during a time of need There's an interesting moment that happened where everybody lost their jobs and people were getting sick. The food system needed to be supported in a way that we felt very passionately. Lamb is one of my favorites to butcher, and it's just because it's so easy. The thing that I love about it, it's kind of like a chicken almost, like in terms of like it's like self-sacrificial values. I just took off the foreshanks and then the lamb neck right there, which is also one of my favorite cuts. I'm taking out the kidney fat and the kidneys along with it. So now that I've felt through and I've actually marked exactly where the cuts are gonna go, I'm just gonna cut through the sternum. Right there, and then another one right there. So here is the whole lamb shoulder, two sides. Starts to kind of have a recognizable shape, right? I think the seams are super important because, you know, it's why I also say like my fingers are my most important tool in butchery and not the knife, because you can feel where to go with your fingers. You can do it with your eyes closed and know where your knife has to go. So, and a lot of it you can pull and tug as long as you're applying pressure and leverage in the correct spot, it falls apart. What I love the most about butchery is the intricacies in the craft, and that there really isn't a moment where you're not learning. So once you get better and better, there is still one more thing, still another thing. We're really different butchers. I'm a lot more detailed. Jocelyn is stronger and more efficient. What do you think?
I'm detailed sometimes.
Oh, mother. Sorry, I heard it. Sorry.
Who's detail oriented now, chef?
Shut up. So the foreshanks, the neck, the shoulders, legs. This one's got the sirloin and the fillet still attached. This is the fillet, sirloin over here. The loin or the saddle, bellies, skirts, hanger, kidneys, kidney fat. The rack of lamb on the top here, the spare ribs on the bottom.
I'm macro, you're micro. That's how I see it. So this is a side of pork. So when the pigs come in, they're always split in half. That's kind of why pork is probably my favorite, is because it's like such a blank canvas. I think if you season it far enough ahead of time, or you brine it, or whatever it is, it can really be whatever you want, which is awesome.
Jocelyn is like the jock in this family.
Not true. I'm like if Emilio Estevez and Ali Sheedy had a baby after Breakfast Club was over.
Okay, so who am I?
You're Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I really like that butchery is just so tangible. You have a cow at the beginning of the day and you have steaks at the end of the day. It's pretty straightforward. So these are some of my favorite cuts that you get from a side of pork. Boneless loin chops, pork trotter, pork flank steaks, pork tenderloin, pork chop, pork copa ribs, pork forehock, and then a Boston butt.
We're currently working on expanding the business, and you know, of course, we're always having some sort of existential crisis because that's in the nature of our business as well, or who we are, maybe. We're working on the USDA processing facility in Long Island City in Queens, and that's going to allow us to really be closer to Brooklyn, closer to Manhattan, like where we're actually doing most of our business, so that's great. I'm putting together all the products that I think go into a small box. I tend to kind of pack a little heavy. Good for you, bad for me. This is my rendition of a small box. Yes?
49.
Did I just totally not hook somebody
Hold on,
up?
I'm adding 75. It's a little bit big. You could lose one piece of beef.
If you ask me, if you ask anybody, I'm the good cop.
I'm fully the bad cop.
Typically on Wednesdays and Thursdays, we do sausage making and terrine making. Today, I made a pork and pistachio terrine with black peppercorn inlay. Terrine is a ground meat product, Let's make it sound real sexy. It's kind of like a European meatloaf, but it usually has like nuts. It's a much more refined, beautiful product usually. Terrine making is, I think, essential to whole animal butchery because it really lends itself to utilizing the whole animal, especially around the grinding meat process. So this is what we call pork trim, and it's literally the offcuts and little bits and pieces from the whole animal. And the fat that we usually use is going to be from the fat back, or like from the fat that gets removed from the loin sections. I think when we put the business together and made a conscious decision to make it an online business, we thought that it was gonna take away the intimacy that we have with our customers. And some of these guys are people who've been customers for years, right? And then there's a lot of new people that we've never met before. But I do also have to say that I get that same interaction over email and over text and over the phone. And I feel a closeness to my customers that I don't know that I have ever actually felt in the past. So that's really nice. We don't always have the terrines around because it's kind of more laborious, like we're talking about right now, and we don't always have the time to do it. And so, but it's on our menu. People freaking flip out when it happens. Like, they get so excited, because, like, in fact, we've made it just for you. So this is basically it. It's pretty much done. And now I'm gonna vacuum seal it and then sous vide it for probably about 5 hours or so. On Tuesdays, we get to skedaddle out of here at around like 4:30, usually.
Says the fake type A person. We usually leave at 5:30. I think before we had a kid, work-life balance fully did not matter to me. I was happy to stay at work late. And I think, with this model, because we're not retail customer facing, we can do a lot of that stuff from home, like during nap time or whatever, and we condense all of our work into 4 days, 4 like longish days, so that we get like 3 dedicated fam days, which is such a treat.
Being Nina's parent freaking rules. Maybe the only reason why we get to have Butcher Girls and get to be business owners at this capacity is because of the help that we get from my parents primarily. We spend a lot of time wanting to be like normal parents. We don't want people to look at us and think
we're
like
better than normal parents.
No, I know that, but like I think that because it's important for not just Americans, but for people to see queer people as people. It's just like I'm Asian or I'm, it's just like it's anything else. But while we're at it, let's be the best queer parents we can possibly be. Because what we want to do is celebrate her and who she is, for the same reason that we celebrate ourselves, right? And that we like maybe wished in some cases that our parents celebrated us. They eventually got there. So nurturing that part of who Nina is and all the little colorful things that make her her, I think is super important. And I hope that all parents do that for their children.